Thanks for coming, and I just wanted to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of where we're meeting today. I'm in my office with Melanie here, and I acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. And for those of you in different locations, feel free to write your own acknowledgements in the chat. So Melanie, I think, is known to all of you. That completed her PhD. How long ago was it?
I graduated last year.
Last year,
finished it the year before.
And in addition to her PhD, she's an accomplished writer and published author in multiple genres. She published over 70 children's books and other types of history as well. And she runs seminars at the University of Melbourne on writer's block and how to break it. So she foolishly told me some of this at the morning tea, and so it prompted the idea to have her talk to us about these issues as well. Melanie's also been a stalwart of the morning teas, which I really wanted to thank her for. Even continued to come after completion and stayed in touch with us and been very generous in mentoring us and giving her advice and wisdom to us. So really appreciate that. So I'll hand over to Melanie. Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you, Tim, for that very generous introduction. This seminar is about writer's block and how to break it. Firstly, though, I want to acknowledge that I live and work on Boonwurrung country, Yarraville, a country of many she-oaks, according to the original owners, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, before I begin, I need to make a couple of things clear. The ideas on writer's block and my strategies for breaking it are gleaned from my experience over many years helping people with the problem. This paper contains practical advice based on things that have actually worked for them. In other words, it's not theoretical. I'm not a psychologist or an expert in special education or in language difficulties. The suggestions I offer are for only blocked writers, not for those with learning difficulties such as dyslexia or aphasia. In fact, the advice in this paper could do them some harm. Also, please note, the ground rules I explain aim to help realign the thinking of those with writer's block and alter their approach to writing tasks. They're the ground rules. But in the second section of the paper, I give some practical strategies, and these aim to unblock writers who have a severe case of writer's block, some of whom haven't been able to write at all. Just wanted to make those distinctions clear. So I want to begin by defining writer's block. I define it as the stressful inability of capable writers to commit themselves to print. Now, in that definition, I emphasise stress. It's a very stressful condition, as some of you may know. And the people with it have, in my experience, been overwhelmingly very, very capable writers and fully engaged with the subjects that they're supposed to be writing on. Now, writer's block isn't a new problem. Many famous writers have suffered from it. Ernest Hemingway, Sam Johnson, the writer of the famous English dictionary. Charlotte Bronte had it after the success of Jane Eyre. She couldn't write at all for several months. And Samuel Taylor Coleridge even wrote a poem about it. So one could hardly say these were not capable writers. Clearly, they were capable of writing perfectly well, but that did not protect them from writer's block. They experienced months, long periods of anguish at not being able to write. So it's important to note that blocked writers are not deficient in any way. They're in the grip of a powerful syndrome. So there's some misconceptions about writer's block that I thought it useful to clarify. People with writer's block are not lazy or reluctant. They're not uninterested in their subject or their research topic. They're not too tired or pressed for time. They're not disorganised. They're not unskilled or ill-prepared. And they're not poor communicators. So writer's block is not a skills problem or a research problem or an organisational issue. It's something your mind does to stop you completing writing tasks. In my experience, blocked writers are able to talk about their subject with fluency and authority. It's writing that holds them back, and they find the problem utterly bewildering. Now, blockers have some things in common. They're highly competent people in other parts of their lives. They're committed researchers in their chosen fields. They have very important ideas to share, and they're often embarrassed as well as shocked at the difficulty they have getting writing tasks done. Blockers see others getting on with their reports or chapters or submissions, writing with ease, and they wonder why they can't do the same. They can't explain why they freeze up when they sit down to write. They have in their heads a wealth of words, but when they try to put them in writing, the words on the screen aren't at all what they meant to say. So they delete and rewrite again and again, trying to get their meaning across. The whole process can be agony, grinding out words with painful slowness. Sometimes the words dry up altogether, and the writer is completely unable to put anything down. Now, I want to give you a case, which is a real case that I had, and one of my students many years ago, who had a very serious case of writer's block. I'll call her Laura. It's 9:45 on Sunday night, and Laura's paper is due at 9 a.m. tomorrow. On her desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups, is her laptop with one carefully written paragraph on it, all she has to show for 6 weeks of incessant work. This is the only part of her paper that she's happy with. Laura has rewritten it so often that she knows every word by heart. Although she's read and prepared her topic extensively and can speak on it with great intelligence and clarity, nothing she writes down expresses what she wants to say. It has taken 6 weeks to perfect the 100 or so words she now has before her. She has to find another few thousand by morning. Not for the first time, she feels sick with anxiety and puts her head down on the desk in despair. Now, Laura is one of the worst cases of writer's block I've ever seen. She was actually a very brilliant student, but her experience is not unique. I've known people who've resigned jobs because they couldn't sit down to write administrative documents. I've known teachers who've given up their profession because they couldn't face writing the reports, and many gifted students who failed subjects because they simply couldn't bring themselves to write their essays. Now, many people who have this experience mistake the problem for something else. They say they haven't done enough research or reading, or there's one more book, one more article, or one more document they need, or one more person to interview. Some blocked writers believe that they need to improve their grammar and spelling, or increase their vocabulary. But strategies like these don't work. They just avoid acknowledging and accepting the problem. So it's useful to set down the symptoms of writer's block. If you have it, you have great trouble meeting deadlines. When you're granted extensions, you miss them too. You become stressed at the very idea of writing. You can formulate ideas in your head and talk about them with ease, but you can't write them down. You're a bit of a perfectionist, and that is a very important element of writer's block. Your finished pieces of writing are shorter than they ought to be. You do the research, preparation very thoroughly, much more than you need to, yet you think you haven't prepared well enough to write. You spend hours on your laptop trying to write and have very little to show for it. In fact, you put more effort, energy, and stress into not writing than others put into simply completing writing tasks. So writer's block is serious. It needs concrete strategies to overcome it. So I've set down 4 ground rules that may help. Ground rule 1. Mind you, some of these things you wouldn't tell students normally or other writers normally, but they have worked for blocked writers. Ground rule 1 is lower your expectations. Writer's block feeds on high expectations. Perfectionism is the enemy of fluent writing. Do not aim to do your best. Aim to do the best you can in the circumstances and within the time allotted. Your only expectation must be to complete a piece of writing in a given time. So, ground rule 1, don't aim for your writing to be perfect, just aim to finish. Ground rule 2, impose strict time limits. Time is the enemy of blocked writers. Extensions, loose time frames, deferrals, flexible deadlines all feed writer's block and make it worse. Approaching a deadline thinking it can be extended is a mistake. Asking for more time simply extends the problem and increases the stress for blockers. So, time every writing session and keep strictly to time. This is a very important rule. Strict time limits are essential to breaking writer's block. So, to sum up ground rule 2, give yourself less time to write and not more. Time every writing session and keep strictly to time. Treat deadlines as non-negotiable absolutes and never seek extensions. Of course, you'll gather your research material and read and discuss and make notes and organise your ideas before you begin to write, but allot a strict time for a writing session and stick to it. In other words, always write to time. Ground rule 3 is banish the blank screen or piece of paper if you're old-fashioned. This rule follows on from rule 2. At the beginning of a strictly timed writing session, start writing and keep writing for the whole time allowed. Write as fast as you can, putting down what you want to say without pausing to think about how it sounds, and don't read over what you have written. If you can't think of anything to write, write nonsense if you must. A happy birthday song, if you can think of nothing else. And if you find yourself writing nonsense, don't agonize over it. Give up and come back next time, but never sit in front of a blank screen. Now, I realize it may sound eccentric to advise someone to write nonsense, but in my experience of working with severely blocked writers, I've found the strategy to work. Very few blocked writers will write nonsense for a whole time allowed. They soon slip into putting down rough ideas on their topic. They might be notes or half-formed sentences, random points. All are better than nothing. Any writing is better than a blank screen. The aim of this ground rule is to allow blocked writers to relax in print and reduce the writing stress. Now, of course, writing done like this will not be finished text, but it is a start, and it helps to break the block. So, to sum up ground rule 3, when you sit down to write, always write something, even if it's nonsense. Never allow the screen or the page to stay blank. Never stop to worry about the quality of the writing during the timed writing session, and never reread or re-edit as you go. You can attend to that when you have something substantial written down, at least a page or 2. Remember, it's much easier to amend a piece of writing than to write from scratch if you have a block. Ground rule 4, make speech the language of your writing. Aim for a fluent writing style closer to the language of speech. Avoid a formal, impersonal writing style. In my experience, the key to breaking writer's block is to find your own writing voice, a writing voice you're comfortable and confident with. To help you find this voice, imagine you're explaining your ideas to an interested, non-judgmental listener. Do not write with your supervisor or your assessor in mind. That simply feeds writer's block. You can always modify the writing voice and tone afterwards if you feel it's necessary. Excuse me. But if you're writing like this, you will have to be content to write in a scrappy way. You can always fix it up later on if you need to. To sum up ground rule 4, write what you mean to say simply and clearly. Avoid a heavy, formal writing style. Don't let the need to express it well get in the way of writing at all, and write with a sympathetic audience in mind. Now, I'm not suggesting that your supervisor or assessor isn't sympathetic, but it is much more useful to write with someone you know who knows nothing about your topic. Remember, getting your ideas into print is more important than expressing those ideas elegantly or perfectly. So those are 4 ground rules that may help relieve or reduce the effects of writer's block. These are key points to keep in mind as you approach a writing task. 1, lower your expectations. 2, always write to time. 3, banish the blank screen. And 4, make speech the language of your writing. Now, obviously, AI comes into this discussion, and I'm not the person to talk about it. I know almost nothing about it. So I'm not qualified to discuss it. However, it seems to me very likely that some AI programs might be helpful to unblock blocked writers. Text it produces in response to specific questions may release the tension and anxiety and stress of the writer's block, because it's easier to amend or edit after you've got something to work on. However, and this is an important but, by definition, AI is produced as a composite voice, and it does not represent your voice. Since one of the keys to unblocking is finding and trusting your writing voice, it should be a voice close to your speech. Using AI may undermine your efforts to find your fluent writing voice because it is not your voice. So, if you're using AI, just keep that in mind. It's not your voice, and finding your own writing voice that you're comfortable with and can write with ease is the secret to breaking the block. I want to say something about writing as a process. I believe writing itself is a creative process. The writing you produce, say if you follow the above rules, that is fast, fluent, and in your own voice, should allow thought processes to run more spontaneously. And this kind of writing can release concepts and arguments that you may not have thought of before. Now, it seems counterintuitive, but fluent writers frequently find that a sentence or a paragraph ends up expressing more powerful ideas than they consciously intended. If you follow ground rules 1 to 4, you may find that you have released concepts, ideas, and points of argument that you hadn't thought of before. Or you may find that you've expressed your ideas in more powerful ways. Now, many fluent writers have said to me that they begin a sentence or a paragraph expecting to say a particular thing and find themselves saying something quite different. It seems very odd, but I have had that experience too. And it's the creative process, the writing itself, that creates that result. And it's a very satisfactory result, because often those ideas are better than the ones you started with. Okay, with all that in mind, I want to suggest some practical suggestions for longer writing tasks. Do not leave writing to the end of a long project when you're faced with producing thousands and thousands of words. For blocked writers, the writing burden is too heavy. Break it up and write as you go. You will, of course, amend and add to your text over the course of the project, but that is much easier to do than starting it from scratch. So don't wait until you have completed all your research on a long project or a section of a project before you start writing. Writing up by chapter or section of a paper can help reduce writer's block and may allow unexpected thoughts to flow creatively. Secondly, do not write your introduction first if you're blocked. Blocked writers often get stumped at this hurdle. It's much easier to write an introduction after you've finished the chapter or section or paper. And more importantly, you may discover new and important ideas as you write, and you want to incorporate them into your introduction. But I can't stress strongly enough how introductions can block a writer if they're a bit prone to writer's block anyway. It puts a burden on them that you don't need to have. You can always write an introduction later. Thirdly, do join writing group sessions. Blocked writers can be helped by sharing their problem. Working groups such as the wonderful Shut Up and Write sessions run by Judy and Gabrielle can give blocked writers peer support and reduce the stress of writer's block. Those sorts of sessions provide blocked writers a timed writing environment that is helpful if they can't manage to set one up by themselves. And that's an important point. It's all very well to say, write to time and set up writing sessions for yourself, but I can't tell you how many blocked writers clean their houses or find the great necessity of wash the car or need to go for a walk. Displacement activity is one of the strongest indicators of writer's block. So these sorts of group sessions help you get over that. They force you to be in a group, and when people start writing, you will write too. Another aspect of group work too to help writer's block is that, oddly enough, blocked writers often feel ashamed of the problem, and they isolate themselves or make up excuses. Sharing their struggles in a group session can reduce that problem and build confidence, because writer's block often has a lack of confidence underneath it. Okay, the above suggestions may be useful for non-blocked writers too. However, the following practical strategies are designed for severely blocked writers to give them a way of breaking the stasis and producing some text. And believe me, blocked writers really need something that will help them move along, because theories won't help them. They need practical strategies to break the block. Now, with these strategies, I don't suggest for a moment that blocked writers could write complete pieces of writing using them. Of course not. They're designed to break the stasis so that they can begin to write fluently. Now, the first of these strategies involves speaking about your ideas to an interested listener. It's basically an interview. Find an interested, patient friend who wants to help you break the block. Ask if they will interview you about a particular area of your studies that you're blocked on. They need know nothing about your writing task or its subject. In fact, if they do not, they will ask basic questions that allow you to loosen up and answer easily. Set a time limit for the interview, say an hour initially, and record it. Because the interviewer preferably doesn't know anything about your topic, they'll ask questions about it. They'll get you to explain your findings in simple terms. They ask follow-up questions and seek further information so you can clarify your ideas. The interview should be informal, relaxed, chatty, so that you can say the things that you find difficulty writing about. Both you and the interviewer can take notes if you like, but don't let that interrupt the flow of the conversation. Remember, it should be just a conversation. At the end of the time allowed, you should have a recording to transcribe. Obviously, you'd use AI for that if you've got a program for it. Otherwise, your faithful friend might volunteer to transcribe it. The resulting text can become the starting point for your writing piece. The process of simply explaining what you want to say helps you get your ideas clear and circumvents the block. At the end of this strategy, you have a body of text that you can work on. It may be disjointed and sketchy, but it's better than nothing at all. And don't delay the task of developing the transcript further. Aim to preserve the fluency of the interview style, otherwise writer's block may reappear. Now, that strategy can help a lot of people if the conversation is relaxed and you're able to explain your ideas simply to them, because often starting from the simplest things help you unblock and you get to the more complex ideas and concepts you have. Now, the second strategy is quite different. It's a game I called round table writing, and it works very well with seriously blocked writers. Round table writing is a group strategy. You need a minimum of 2 people, but it works better with 4, up to, say, 6 people. Not all of them need to be blocked writers. You need your laptop, or if you like, a few sheets of blank paper and some pens. Either will do. The rules of round table writing are very strict. All writing must be strictly timed, and you must write something for the allotted time. And when the writing time starts, everyone must write something for the whole time, even if it's nonsense. Those are the 2 simple rules. You begin the session with each group member sitting round a table with their topic open on their laptop. The topic can be any aspect of the material you're working on, but it should be very specific. For example, infant mortality rates in Ballarat on the goldfields in 1854, or something like Indigenous activists in Footscray during the Great Depression. Before the timing starts, each group passes their laptop over to the person on their right. Now, each member is looking at a topic on their screen that they know nothing about. Before the timing starts, the task for each member is to write a convincing opening paragraph on the topic they have in front of them for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously, they know nothing at all about the subject, but they must write quickly with a minimum of thought on the topic. Most block writers do this very easily because the topic has no terrors for them. It's only the topic they work on that gives them problems. All you have to do with this new topic you've never seen before is pretend you're an expert on the topic and make things up. When the 10 or 15 minutes are up, each member will have a written paragraph on a topic about which they know nothing at all. Then each member passes the laptop to the person on their right again. Now each member has another topic they know nothing about, plus one paragraph written by someone else who knows nothing about it. By this time, group members are beginning to enjoy themselves. They coin jargon, they invent arguments, they cite references without having the slightest idea of what they're writing about. You continue as before, with each group member writing another paragraph for 10 or 15 minutes, then passing the laptop or paper to the person on their right until they receive back their own laptop with their own topic on it, plus several paragraphs of invented text. Now each group member reads to the group the invented paragraphs on their topic. The owners of the topic are often amazed at how convincing and authoritative the inventive paragraphs sound. I had one group member once in a seminar write a brilliant analysis of a short story, complete with a dead body, a mad wife, and all complete with quotations, all made up, and footnotes. Obviously, these paragraphs are nonsense and often very funny, and that is important. Stress is a crucial part of writer's block, and roundtable writing works like a game. It can be a lot of fun. The experience of enjoying a writing session is an important part of breaking writer's block. Now, each member of the group has their own topic back in front of them, and they ask themselves, do these paragraphs in front of me come anywhere near the kinds of things I'm supposed to be talking about on my topic? Well, obviously the answer is no, they don't. At least each group member realizes they have more of an idea than these inventions on how to address their own topic. At this point, every group member starts to write on their own topics as much as they can, as fast as they can, timed to say 20 or 30 minutes. Using the roundtable writing strategy, most blockers are able to write fluently on their topics for the time allowed, many of them for the first time. I've had blocked writers beavering away happily on their topics, very reluctant to stop at the end of the 30 minutes because they've been able to write at last on something they've been blocked on for weeks. So, to sum up, roundtable writing works by reducing the stress of the block, highlighting the blocked writer's own body of knowledge, building confidence that the block can be beaten, and actually producing text for the blocked writer to work on, often for the first time. Now, there's a strange phenomenon that arises in some blocked writers when, using these strategies or ground rules, they finally produce a piece of writing on their topic. I call it the letdown. If you're a blocked writer and you follow these guidelines and strategies successfully, you'll break the block. However, you'll probably have no faith at all in the piece of writing you have produced. It may be incomplete. You think it's incomplete, inconsistently argued, lacking in detail or evidence, poorly expressed, etc. But it will be text you can work on. The writing you have achieved will probably need a lot of development. But for you, it's much easier to edit and expand existing text than to write from scratch. This is crucial for blocked writers. Stress reduces once you have something in print, no matter how underdeveloped the writing is. Having said that, though, it's surprising that writing produced in this way can actually be better than that squeezed out painfully over days or weeks. This has often happened with blocked writers I've worked with. However, when they receive positive feedback on their written papers produced in this way, they're often rather miffed. that writing that was so easy to produce could be more successful than writing that was squeezed out with blood and tears. That is part of the complex problem of writer's block. It's your block jealously preventing you from enjoying your triumph over it. So let me finish by recapping the main guidelines for breaking writer's block. Never sit in front of a blank screen trying to write. Time every writing session and stick to it. Write as much as you can, as fast as you can for the allotted time. Use a writing voice close to the language of speech. Write with a sympathetic audience in mind, not your assessor. Never reread what you have written until you've completed at least a page or more. Don't rewrite as you go, and avoid too much rewriting altogether. Never agonize over the writing style. It simply reawakens writer's block. And remember, substance is much more important than style. So finally, your only aim, if you're a blocked writer, should be to have a finished piece of writing, not a perfect one, of the right length, submitted on time. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. That was really helpful. Certainly a lot of your rules resonate with my experience over my career. I'll open it up to questions. If you could use the put a hand up function, would be great. Thank you. If I can start, I just want to pick you up on the point you make at the end there about, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect and you want to get something down. It seems to me like so much of the important part of writing is the editing as well. So it seems like a lot of us, we try and produce something really good the first time, and that's what holds us back. And so can you speak about the importance of editing? Because what I find is that you have to get something down, and then you have to do draft after draft of editing. But once you've got something down, it's much easier, because then it's a more passive process.
Absolutely. And because editing is so much easier to do once you've got something there. You can add material, you can change the tone if you like. But for block writers, often they feel they have to produce edited copy while they're writing. And that's impossible if you've got a block. You just can't. And that's why sometimes just talking to someone about the problem releases the block, because you don't edit as you talk. You edit only as you write. But as I say, I have to say, some fluent writers do very little editing at all. Very little, and it comes out very well. But that's not the case for blocked writers in general.
I think that's an important point. Is to, as you say, lower expectations and realize the task is to get something to start with.
Out.
And then you can build on it.
And I mean, expectations are a real problem, because in an environment like this, expectations are very high. But it seems to me, from my experience with blocked writers, is you have to start simply. You have to start at the simplest point. And that's why, again, the roundtable writing strategy or something works, as do the interview technique, because you have to explain things as simply as you possibly can. And that means you're not going to be worried about how it sounds. The substance becomes front of mind, and that makes all the difference.
I think that's a really good tip that you give about the writing circles and so on, the roundtable writing, because it's an experience I've often had socially. Is someone asks you what's your topic about, and then you say it socially. You think, that was actually really helpful.
It is.
Because you're not prepared, and so you just crystallize it in a way that you can't do when you're sort of trying to be an academic.
Exactly.
Judy, you have a question.
Oops, sorry, I think Claire was before me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Claire, you go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy. Question 4. Hi, Melanie. Thank you for doing today's thing. Point 4 in the ground rules: make speech the language of your writing. You said something about, when you were summing up, you said simply, clearly, not formal, don't let something get in the way. And I missed it. Do you remember what it was?
Let me see.
Maybe it was expectations.
Let's see. Well, I think I would be saying, don't let the expectations of the academic world, really, but anything, of the editor or the person you're writing for, get in the way. If you write simply and clearly, as if you're explaining it to someone rather than writing it, it makes the difference. It loosens you up so that you can explain in the simplest terms you can think about exactly what you want to say. And that is often different from what ends up on the page or on the screen. It's often different. I'm not sure that it needs to be different myself. I have views on that, but there is an academic style, and you need to obviously re-edit carefully. But that fluent writing style is actually, it's containing the substance of what you want to say, and that's the important thing. So when you come to re-edit, you've at least got the substance down, and you can work with that, you can work on it. But the problem with writer's block is that the style of it, the words you're using, become the most important thing rather than the actual substance of what you want to say, in my experience anyway. And yes.
I like that idea of substance, being your way in. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Judy, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks very much, Melanie. We've had a few conversations about this in the past, and I really find it very helpful. I'm wondering if you have any tips to stop you going down the research rabbit hole. Like I'm writing, and then I think I need a reference for that, and then I go to that, and then it takes me in all other directions.
Yep. That's a really good point.
Is there a way to stop yourself from doing that, and also to somehow quickly note something so you don't forget it?
Yes. Yeah, I think that second point is really, really important. Write things down as you go. Never wait to the end. Yeah, always write things or put stickers on the, whatever. That's really important. Look, the rabbit hole is a real trap. It is a real trap, and we all do it. I think time limits, word limits, these are helpful for that. And I mean, if you strictly time what you're doing, it helps enormously because it prevents you stopping and going down rabbit holes. So that if you set yourself, I mean, the big problem, Judy, it seems to me, is feeling confident to write, feeling that you've done enough to write. And you have to be very kind to yourself and say, okay, can I write some sense about this? It might not be perfect, it might not be wonderful, and it certainly might not be the final thing you write, but can I make at least an initial go at putting this down for someone who doesn't know much about it, just getting it down. And then when you come back to it, that's when the rabbit holes have to be prevented. But coming back to it, at least you've got something there, the substance of it there, rather than saying, well, I must look at this and I must do that, and that really is important to include at the beginning. If you can get the core of it down, that's important. So I suppose, in answer to your question, be very kind to yourself at the point at which you say, I'm competent now to write this down. And this chapter is going to be okay because I'll add to it later, but this is the beginning. I'm going to write what I know for now and get it down. And then you can always infill later if you want to. But if you get the thing down, you might be surprised and find that it's actually terrific, and you go on to the next thing. That often happens, actually, because it's a classic symptom of writer's block that writers have done far more research than they actually need to do. So good luck with that.
Do you think it's useful to sort of separate your writing from your reference finding, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can just sort of put a note and say, need reference to this, and then have a separate session on that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, that's what fluent writers do all the time. They my thing is I always put double X's down because, when you can search and find them straight away. And that's where there's a gap. But then you keep going. You don't stop at that. You keep going and complete the concept that you've got, or the chapter or whatever it is, full bore. And then you go back and look at I look at my double X's and I find the things, and then I do some more research for that bit only, not for anything else. But it helps to focus the bits that you're lacking, as you see it, lacking in the research, so that each time you might have 20 double X's in a chapter. Doesn't matter. You've still got the basics there, and you've identified exactly where you need to go back. Much better than thinking, oh, I'm not ready yet, and then the rabbit hole appears. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I sometimes think of it as like you've got to get a train from like London to Edinburgh, and so you can't go off and sort of have a look at Liverpool or something. You've got to. You think your task is to get to the end point, so you've got to keep the thing moving.
Exactly so. And and nothing, I mean, the slightest thing can stop you, and that's the trouble. You know, it can be a phone call and you're done.
Yeah.
So it's really important. That's the other thing. Turn off your phone while in a writing session. It's really important.
Yeah, that's the big area, isn't it?
Yeah. But it is like a train.
Yeah.
And you also have to stop what I call the writing block monster sits on your shoulder saying, this is all folly. That's a quote from T.S. Eliot. This is all folly, you know, it's a load of rubbish. And everyone, I think, at some stage feels their writing is that rubbish, you know. But you can always improve the stuff you've got. It's much harder to create it from the beginning. I keep saying that, but it's true. As long as you get something down, infilling is the easy bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I've learned when you have those thoughts is don't throw away what you've done.
Oh, never throw away what you've done.
Because actually, if you come back in a better mood, you realise, hey, it's
not bad.
It's not that
That's
bad.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right.
But it reflects the mood that you're in. So it's the best thing to do is have a break probably at that point.
Yeah. And I used to tell my students, never reread as they go. You know, never reread a paragraph because inevitably you'll edit it as you go. It's impossible not to. So keep going until you've completed at least a sequence of thoughts that you're happy with, a page minimum, and preferably the whole thing, and then go back.
Yeah.
But rereading is deadly to writer's block. Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions?
Oh,
Emma, yeah.
Well, not so much a question really though, Melanie. I really enjoyed your talk, and it really resonated with me in lots of ways, and also I think for our students, you had I really loved how you had the practical tips, and I think there was a few things that really stood out for me. One of the things I think is it was around the editing and around not over kind of editing, because I think I'm someone who struggles less with getting words on a page because I just convince myself, and especially in the day and age of word processing computers, that I will just come back and I'll fix it later. And my problem is I never stop fixing it later. So I just constantly, I mean,
Yep.
Do you see that as a kind of element of writer's block in itself that I can't let go?
Absolutely, yes. And rewriting and rewriting is an absolute symptom of writer's block. It is, because there's no limit to it. You can always rewrite. You can always make it better as you think. But it's absolutely a symptom of it. So that again is a matter of timing it. If you're re-editing a lot, give yourself a strict time limit. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. That's actually really helpful. Yeah, I think I I can write, but I find it really hard to let things go. And I just as you say, that there is no perfecting, and trying to sort of get it out into the world, you know, rather than just sitting on your computer and never seeing the light of day.
Exactly. And that's why also, if you feel that, you know, you're re-editing too much, give it to someone, give it to anyone. Doesn't have to be an expert in the field. In fact, the contrary is better. And just get them to read it. And, you know, anyone can say, oh, look, you know, I wasn't quite sure of that point, or, you know, this bit didn't, you know, quite gel or something. And if they don't know anything about your topic, it's easy because they can pick out the things that are obvious, if there are any. But, you know, getting it out, as you say, getting it out into the world is absolutely crucial for blocked writers because, if you're blocked at the editing stage, it's exactly as if you couldn't write in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels that way. So thank you. That's actually really helpful. Thanks, Melanie. Sorry, Gabby.
Roland asked or raised a good point in the chat that's, I think, particularly relevant to the postgrad cohort in terms of making the transition from undergrad, you know, where a coordinator, you know, gives you questions and sets deadlines. So there's a structure there for you to fit into. The postgrad where you all of a sudden you're saying, well, make your own questions and the time is much more fluid.
Yes, that's so hard.
So how do people, or sort of tips for managing that transition?
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly it is a discipline really, isn't it, about timing and about strict time limits and word length limits and things like that. But it is hard. I mean, I'm assuming really that we're talking mostly to postgrad students here, and no postgrad student who's, you know, even a few weeks into their study hasn't got some key questions that they want to ask themselves, key issues that they want to raise. And the answer is simplify, always simplify that. Not, you know, mortality on the goldfields in 1854, but, you know, the child deaths in a particular area, make it very, very specific, and that becomes your topic. And then it's exactly as if you've been given an essay topic because you make that the thing you're working on, and simplify all the time. in actual fact, it's useful if you're very blocked to imagine that you're writing for maybe a upper secondary school audience or something. So you have to very simply set down your ideas, really, really simply, because your imagined audience is part of an issue, part of the problem if you're blocked on it. So if you've got a topic and you've got a specific area of that topic that you need to write on, imagine you're explaining it or writing for a very basic audience, someone who doesn't know anything about it, is just genuinely interested. And that helps to break it down so that you've got a series of questions to ask yourself, because, yes, you're not given that discipline. But, yeah, it's breaking things down into small sections and being very strict on the discipline of timing, how you do it, and the length of it too, and keeping it as simple as you can in your mind with the speaking voice, not the writing voice. But actually, I think I've never encountered people doing long form projects like postgrad work who haven't got heaps of things to talk about. Heaps of issues, very specific issues they want to raise. They're always very fluent in what they want to do. It's actually starting to shape it and write it that is the problem. So, yeah, if you can isolate those issues, those things you want to talk about, and then explain them simply on paper, if you like, and give that a framework so that the discipline you have as an undergrad is recreated by yourself as a postgrad.
Yeah. And in terms of discipline, I mean, what do you think of? I know some people like set a daily writing target. Like I'm going to write 1,000 words every day or something.
I don't think that's helpful.
Yeah.
I think what that does is drive a writer's block person to clean the bathroom, actually.
Right.
Setting word limits is not a good idea in my experience. Time limits, yes. And if you write 2 paragraphs in the 30 minutes you've set, well, that's great. It doesn't have to. But I know a lot of writers do that. They set their, so many words per, and good on them. That's fine. They're mostly fluent writers, though.
Yeah.
And it just makes them sit down and not clean the bathroom or go to see a film or something. But for blocked writers, setting a word length is a problem, because word length is always too long for them. There's always too long for them. I mean, I've had students who've written literally 1 page when they're meant to write 6 or something, and handed in because they simply couldn't do more. So yeah. Word lengths are a problem. So avoid them if you can, and just be happy you've got something down on the page because you wrote for the time allotted, and don't worry how short or long it is, as long as you kept writing for that time. Be happy with that. That's the thing. You've got to also celebrate your wins. When you do get something down, you need to celebrate it and not say, oh my God, this is rubbish. You've got to say, no, I've done it, and then the next time I'll do it again, and keep trying, and it'll come.
Did you see Gabby, Tim? I think it's hard to see the yellow hand.
Sorry about that. Yeah, the light's on the screen there. But yeah, Gabby, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Melanie, I just wanted to thank you. I think I suffer from the perfectionism really impacts my writing block, and I've been to workshops about it and the sort of psychology of it, and that's very helpful. But I think, my brain, if we just say don't, avoid perfection or ignore perfection, my brain will tell me, you've wasted how many days trying to, and you haven't produced anything. Therefore, today you have to achieve something more perfect. So I'm thinking, I think my brain justifies continuing to aim for perfection. So I think your suggestion, and I think this is what Emma touched on, the practical suggestion of the game, or, the sort of the writing circle.
Roundtable writing.
The roundtable writing, thank you, I wrote it down. It's good because it's like the fun in writing, I think. And I think perfection, that's a good way to combat perfectionism by making it a game or making it fun. And then, like you said, once you break that initial sort of process. So thank you. Yeah, I think that's going to be really helpful in the future.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks, Gabby.
Thank you. And did you go to the one, Gabby, on the writers' workshop? It was like an authors' circle one. I can't remember. Claire sent, and I just remember that saying about, what about if you see writing as a conversation, so it's not like the last word, it's like
absolutely right.
I just love that, because I think I'm so just frozen sometimes with perfectionism, and I like that reframing, and I think it gets to the fun of the round table too, but to think of your writing as being out in the world and starting a conversation, not necessarily being the last word and the perfect word, but I find that helpful. It's so that's challenging.
Right. That's really, really useful point, because it's never the last word. You can write the last word on anything, and that's the thing. When when you start to write on an area of your research, it should be just the first word. It should be just the first word. And you write as much as you can on that. And re-editing, minimize the re-editing in my experience. I know people do re-edit endlessly and that's their style and that's okay. But if you've got if you're prone towards perfectionism, re-editing is a real enemy. And yeah, it'll never be the last word. And if you can say, right, this is what I know, this is the things I want to say, it's good enough, you know. It's very hard. But that's why rereading what you've written is a bad idea. Some students, I've told them not to reread at all until they've finished a whole chapter because it's just too dangerous, because it'll stop them. So that, you know, perfectionism is a terribly difficult thing. But your point, Gabby, about how you spend, you know, days and days thinking or trying to think about it or writing and it isn't being good enough, that's, I can understand that. You feel, well, this one's got to be 10 times better than the 10 times I tried before, right? Yeah. But actually, it's perfectly possible that the first time you write down your ideas were just as good as the 10th. You know, that can happen. It is just as good. And the working over and working over, particularly in creative writing circles, which is not this context, but in creative writing circles, the overworked piece of writing is never as good as the first one, ever. And that can happen too in this discipline, I think. That the sort of the creative writing flow that I talked about in the paper, where ideas just come out quickly, can often be actually more exciting and interesting than the ones you've thought about 10 times. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. That was really helpful.
It's really cool.
I was just wondering about the importance of self-care in writing. I mean, I find that having breaks is really important. Like for me, exercise is really helpful.
Really good.
Just you know, when you exercise, it helps to give you ideas,
absolutely.
and get the blood flowing, and also just looking after yourself so that you don't burn out. And music as well is another thing that I find it. So can you speak to that as well?
Yeah. There's one caveat to that as with displacement activities with writer's blockers, running becomes terribly important when you're supposed to be writing a piece of something. Exercise becomes, you know, you're at the gym more than you ever would be normally if you're supposed to. But on the hand, yes, absolutely. And self-care is important. You need to be kind to yourself, and you need to tell yourself too that this isn't going to be perfect. It's going to be the best I can do in the circumstances. And the circumstances are actually being kind to yourself. You know, you need to look after yourself. But also one other point, further to your point, Tim, is when you get to, this happens to me all the time, I get to a piece of writing and I think, oh, this is not really good, it's not working. Don't wrestle with it. Leave it and go away and do something else. Go for a run, go clean the bathroom if you want to.
Yeah.
And then come back later. Don't wrestle. Don't sit wrestling with individual paragraphs or individual sections that are not working for you. Leave it and come back. And I've found many times, and other writers tell me this, that you go to bed on a problem and you wake up in the morning and you think, I know the answer. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
So never stay up until the wee hours. Try knotting out a problem which will not solve, a writing problem. Go to bed, sleep, look after yourself and come back and try it. And that happens a lot, that you think, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that, and off you go. Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there's some little person at the back of your brain that's going to sort it out. But in order to get to them, you've got to stop.
You've got to stop, And stopping when you feel stressed is really important. Don't keep at it. Just give up and go away and come back. And when you come back, start timing it again very strictly. And that the timing thing is important because it does relieve you of that awful burden of endlessness, you know, that if you can't write, there's no end, no limit to the amount of blank screens you'll be staring at or unsatisfactory paragraphs you'll be looking at. So, give up and go away, do something healthy for yourself and then come back. That's a very good point.
And in terms of the sort of endless editing problem, which is another aspect of it, I find that, you know, you've got to do a certain amount of editing, but I find it's when you get to that point where you're not really improving what you've written. That's how I know that, Tim, look, it's time to move on here. Send this off.
Absolutely, send it off. And giving it to someone else helps with that.
If you're just adding another quote that says the same thing as another quote, or you know, you're just fiddling around, you know, we're not really changing anything fundamental.
Exactly.
I think it's that it's not really improving it. So that's how I know, just to pass on what I've learned.
And I will say a strange thing, which happens to me and happens to other creative writers I know. But I do a lot of research and, you know, heaps and heaps of research, you do it all. And then something tells me it's time to write. Now, I don't know whether that's a common thing or not in this discipline, but I know it's common in creative discipline. If you're perhaps writing something that's historically based or something, you do all the research. But you know, for nonfiction too, that you think, okay, I've done enough for the time being. And that's what you tell yourself, not I've done it all, but I've done enough for the time being and now I'm ready to write. And you always add little bits afterwards. But there comes a time when you say, yes, enough is enough. Now is the time to write. And make sure enough really is not too much. That's the crucial thing. You will never finish researching if you're not content to say, all right, I've done enough for this task. And you can always add later if you need to. But yeah.
But if the sources are becoming repetitive,
absolutely,
then it's really not achieving. You might be getting more material, but if it's just reinforcing the same points.
And the same with endlessly rewriting. You know, you find a different word for the thing with the same meaning because it sounds fancy or something. You know, yeah.
And are there any other questions? Oh, well, thanks everyone for coming. I think that was a really helpful hour. So many good tips, and it's certainly helped me, giving me a lot of good formulas and recommendations to work on. I hope it's helped you as well. And we'll preserve this and the recording so that you can listen to it in the future if you want to go back and go over some of these lessons. But thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing your experiences and expertise.
And thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. It was very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.